Afternoon, everyone. My name is Randy Bell. I'm the director of the Global Energy Center here at the Atlantic Council. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here today for this conversation with Dr. Chowdhury, the energy advisor to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. I know many of you here in the room know him already. We have a nice group today, and before we get started, I thought it would be useful for everyone just to go around the room and say who you are so that we can have a good conversation. So why don't we start over here and just say who you are and who you're here with.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon. This is Modular. I'm the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of Bangladesh in Washington, D.C.
Tom Graham. I used to be in government for a long time, and I'm currently chairman of Libraries Corporation.
Babai Court, had the honor of working in Bangladesh for many years with Dr. Chowdhury and others, with both AID and State Department, now I'm at the Atlantic Council.
Aspirations, I just retired from the International Finance Corporation, where I was there for 8 years, and before that I was with the World Bank, so I'm going to Bangladesh since the 1990s, early 1990s.
Good afternoon, I'm Yari Byron. I work in the World Bank's South Asia and its team on Bangladesh and other things.
I'm also part of the World Bank and I'm part of the Bangladesh Energy team as well.
I'm Ziauddin Chaudhary. I retired from the World Bank after 30 years.
We have the World Bank corner over there.
I'm Saifur Rahman from Virginia Tech. I direct the Research Institute in Arlington, Fort Virginia Tech.
I'm Tawfiq-e Elahi. I'm the audience engagement editor from West American News.
Brian, we're doing Global Energy Center team at the council.
My name is Sabu Hussain. I'm in the private sector in Bangladesh on the energy side.
Ramon Wanti, Vice President for Business Development for Accelerate Energy.
I'm Balaka. I work with the Atlantic Council and Aspirations, mainly on energy research and science.
Irfan Nuruddin, I'm the director of the South Asia Center at the Atlantic Council.
Mark Richcock, Internet Booster Strategies and Industry in the region.
Bangladesh desk, J Bureau, South Central Asia, State Department.
Beth Jones, ExxonMobil.
Jennifer Murky, Senior Energy Advisor, Department of State, Caroline, Bangladesh.
Jennifer Gordon, Deputy Director of the Atlantic Council Global Energy Center.
So thank you all for joining us, and I hope we have a really good conversation today. Just before we get started, we'll remind you all that this is on the record and it is live streamed. We will, when we have a conversation, ask you to speak in the microphone so that the live stream can hear us. They couldn't hear you because the microphones weren't on, so no one knows your name. And if you want to follow the conversation on Twitter, it's at AC Global Energy and use the hashtag AC Energy. Thank you all for being with us today. Dr. Chowdhury is going to talk for 20 or 30 minutes about what the next steps are for energy in Bangladesh. You've really had a remarkable set of accomplishments over the past 20 or 30 years, where in 2017, the most recent year for which the World Bank provides data, and I think if you all hadn't retired, we'd have 2018 data. But you had 88% of Bangladeshis had access to energy, and this is up from under 15% in 1991. That's a remarkable accomplishment, and this coincides with at least 6% growth every year for the past 20 years or so in terms of economic development. And so you really have a remarkable story to tell, but there are also still challenges. So over to you to hear where you think the country's going from an energy perspective, and we'll have a conversation after that.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Before we walked in, Mr. Bell said what you'd like to hear from me. But let me start by what I would like to tell you to start with. Bangladesh often being seen as a recent country that come into the map of the world, when India is seen as a older civilization. But let me remind you that back in 3rd century BC, when Alexander was invading India, the big Maurya Empire actually included Bangladesh and Bihar and other areas. And if you have time, if you go to Bangladesh, about 2 hours drive from Dhaka, there is a monastery, a residential university, which dates back to 3rd century BC. So we have a very rich history. But then, Bangladesh is a product of an aberration of history. When the British left, and we had to fight our way to achieve our independence in 1971. And we inherited a land which was in ruins, from which our journey started. Early on, we were about to build our country when, the father of the nation was assassinated, and USAID was withheld the PL480 grain supply to Bangladesh, which at least partly contributed to famine in Bangladesh. That was followed by successive military governments. Then in 1990, democratic government started its journey again. So with these ups and downs of history, I date back to 3rd century BC again. We have made great progress in last decade or so, coming back. You mentioned the data, I don't know whether you said 15%?
In 1991, under 15%.
No, it was 45% in 19.
So you got to blame them for that data, because it was pulled straight from the World Bank website about 2 hours ago.
No. Let me correct myself. In 2008, it was 45%. Okay. So it may be, 25% or so. And now it's about 95%, the access to electricity. But then, you must have heard that Bangladesh made great progress in last decade or so. I still don't understand, myself being a part of it, as to what has driven this fast growth and gains in other sectors. But I think, the basic endowment of a country, both tangible and intangible, its history, its aspiration of its people, and the leadership of a country possibly make all the difference. You said 6%, last year growth was 8%. And it's been steady growth rate of GDP with decline in poverty, which has been halved in last 10 years' time. Women's maternal mortality, infant mortality, empowerment of women, enrollment of kids in schools, on all these numbers, we have made significant progress ahead of our peers in the region. So energy has been a driver in this process. But then I mentioned aspirations. It's very important for a country. When our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina started her second term in 2009, the election manifesto was Charter for Change and Digital Bangladesh. Now these two should be seen against a country which was reeling under power shortages, and a country which has just come out of a military-backed civilian government. So, it was again trying to find its bearing. But then we did what might be called parallel processing. Craig Venter, who did genes mapping through parallel processor, cut short the time. I just barely read the story that he did the mapping by slicing the gene into pieces and then stitch them together. This example, like when we are talking about digital Bangladesh and having access to digital services in rural Bangladesh, as you know, there was no electricity. So how can we have this? So we put up solar panels in those areas where electricity had not reached, but we did not give up on our aspiration. Similarly, let's say in the health areas, our government decided that every 6,000 people must have basic health service available to them, the kind of a doorstep. Now, World Bank guys will start calculating how many people you need, what would be the training time, how do you build up the facilities, what's the total price tag of it, and then decide, get hold of resources and then get moving. Now, we did it very differently. We started moving right ahead. You address your problems with whatever resources you have. It's not theorization of the resources versus competing needs that takes a country forward. So similarly, in the case of energy and power, we said we must provide electricity to all our citizens by 2021. And we then just had 45% of people. Over 38 years, we achieved 45%. And next 10 years, we wanted more than double that. So you have to have power supply. Now, to augment the supply of power, you need to put up power generation plants. Again, the question comes, where do you get the finances? We said, no, we do the job first and see what will happen to finances. Now, we first took out $1 billion from our own budget and started setting up small power plants, and also invited private sector to join hands. These are small 100, 150 megawatt power plants. And as in private sector, money always follows good ideas. And that was proven by our ability to mobilize about $20 billion in power sector in the last 10 years. So there were challenges, the financing challenges, implementing the projects over large areas, there were challenges. But then we did overcome those challenges. One point I forgot to mention, which also are to our advantage, that Bangladesh is a very small country. 100, you go by miles, 55,000 square miles, and 160 million people. By the same token, United States should be able to accommodate 10 billion people, all of the global population, and another 50%. We are the largest delta in the world. There are about 700 rivers flowing down through Bangladesh. 1 billion tons of sediments are carried to Bay of Bengal. So in that land, crisscrossed by rivers, and with such dense population, it's tough to implement projects. But we did, touch wood, we did get through these projects. The skeptics were saying, oh, this is not going to happen. And then, I remember having shown them photographs of projects being implemented. And they said, there's like a story in Bangladesh, or you tell a guy he's going to get a job. Oh, no, you won't get a job. So I said, no, he got the job. Oh, you won't get paid. He said, he got paid, but you're not going to get paid next month. So the naysayers, but then, we kept our focus on. Here, the role of Prime Minister was very important, because what is special about her? I have worked with her maybe for last 20 years. Over time, and I think this is a lesson other countries can also learn, she focuses on individuals at the grassroots level. It's not a number. The problem with statistics that it takes away faces and, dehumanizes people by putting a number, 1, 10, 2. So you have to have that humane approach to problems of people in the margin. See their face, see their family, see their dwellings, see the challenges they have, and start solving them. So electricity was similarly viewed, that we have to provide, and Bangladesh in our constitution, providing rural electricity is a part of our constitutional obligations. So we were able to increase our power generation capacity 5-fold in this 10 years' time. Access to electricity improved from 45 to, I think, 94% now. We mobilized about $20 billion plus resources, both public and private. And this was a part of a belief in a virtuous cycle that we banged the policy on. That if you can provide electricity, then you generate, you assist both industry and agriculture, you generate income, you generate export, and you start moving in the. And when we are short of electricity, we rationed it to provide electricity to farmers and industries first, and others had to wait for enough power to be available. So that worked out in our favor. The export grew, growth took place in the economy, inflation was low, deficit was low, and more importantly, ordinary folks were getting the benefit of this, which, as I said, reflected in lowering of infant mortality, maternal mortality. All girls go to school now. And in mid-level, there are more girls than boys. So now as we look forward, this is a tougher job now in hand. We have run short of, as of now, domestic resources for primary energy. 10, 15 years back, we thought that we had a lot of oil and gas, but there wasn't many exploration projects undertaken, and now existing assets seem to be declining. But we are hoping on two things, that on the land, onshore, there will be some discoveries, and maybe many discoveries in what they call stratigraphic traps. It's not the folds where you get normally hydrocarbons, they're between strata. So there has been some leads in certain areas onshore, which actually takes the lead down south to a place called Bhola. So we are hoping, I said, I believe fortune favors the brave. So we have taken our plunge, and we hope that we'd be lucky to get this hydrocarbon in these onshore areas. And offshore, we are one of those few countries who decided about maritime boundary without picking up quarrel with our neighbors, both India and Myanmar. It's not in the eastern side of Asia, it's not there. So our borders have been, maritime boundaries have been accepted by all the countries, and we have found out our blocks where we want to have oil and gas exploration. We did have some interest about 7, 8 years back, but given the low price of oil, like ConocoPhillips was doing exploration in 2 deep sea blocks, but they couldn't do because the prices were too low at that time. And Myanmar was offering much better incentive at that point in. Now we have improved our production sharing contract, and we would like the US companies to come and invest in offshore oil and gas. Chevron has been there for quite some time, and you can ask Chevron about the experience with Bangladesh. I'm told they go about and say, Ambassador Beth Jones has been there in Bangladesh. She must have found out what Chevron thinks about us, but I expect she would be able to convince ExxonMobil to come and start some work no sooner than this year. Okay, so but we had to deal with our current situation. So we kind of diversified our fuel. The initial projects which took us over this crisis, they were mostly based on furnace oil and diesel. They're both very expensive, and furnace oil is also very it's not very environment friendly. So now we are adding up other primary sources, like we are setting up a coal hub, coal-fired power plant in near Chittagong with a deep sea port there. The Japanese government has been providing assistance. So we hope to have a 10 gigawatt, 10,000 megawatt of energy hub there. Another energy hub will be in the central location of Bangladesh, South Bangladesh. A new port is being built at Paira, where we have already started operation of a 600 megawatt coal-fired power plant. Another one would start operation next year. Our ambassador has arrived, so He can fill in later on maybe. So there is a Pyra port is also being developed, and we needed gas very badly, so we set up two FSRU, floating storage and regasification unit. Anybody from Accelerate here? Very good. So it is our joint project, not yours only. We did it together. We had, get over a lot of rough sea, but it's working now, and we have two of those. We needed to have a transmission network to take this gas, but it's being built, and I hope by the end of this year we'll be able to take all of the gas, which will be about 8 million metric tons if it is optimal. Now, how do I go about the future? Let's say on the state of power side, we plan to have at least about 60,000 megawatt of power by 2040, at which time we aspire to become a developed country. So now we have about 22,000 megawatt. So you can imagine 3 times of this power generation will have to come, and also the fuel has to be ensured. So what kind of fuel? We have gone quite a bit with coal, and we are also examining LNG-based power plants. There are some proposals being discussed now on LNG to power. But mind you, these are very expensive power also. So we have to have either the income has to grow up enough to be able to afford this power, or we'll have to keep the power price tariff little low to country move forward. I disagree with multilateral organization when they call it subsidy. I mean, if I have improved the life of ordinary people, if mothers are doing better, if children are doing better, you have achieved a lot of other social goals. And so you should not look at it as a private good yet. It's still a merit good, as they say. So the other spin-off benefits have to be factored in. But anyway, now, we have to choose. So the choice that is before us is to have LNG-based power plants or gas-based, if we can find some gas, maybe another 5, 6. It takes time, maybe 10 years it would be needed. Coal, now when I've come on coal, a lot of people, will raise, alarm that, these guys are talking about coal. Now, our carbon footprint is 0.4 metric ton per capita per annum. 0.4. And the footprint of developed countries is average 20 metric ton per capita per annum. So even if we set up another 10,000 megawatt of power plants, 20,000 in, it would not even make a fraction difference in the global warming. But it will make a whole lot of difference in the life of other people. Not that we are not looking at renewable energy. By the by, we have the largest solar home system in the world. About 6 million houses get essential service from solar standalone system with a battery there. So you can multiply it by 5, so it will be 30 million people, bigger than many countries. So they are getting the essential services from solar home system, but they also want electricity which they can do productive activities, small-scale industries. So gradually, these households are being connected with the grid also. But there are areas where it will be very expensive to go and extend the grid. So there we are setting up small mini grid, micro grid, so that the people in the area can get stable electricity and use it for industrial purpose. And we are planning how to make the price tariff of electricity the same as it is for the cities and grid-connected people. So we are trying to work out a mechanism by which those who are using solar energy, or we are promoting solar energy, because it's very expensive for us to take the grid there, they will not pay more than what the grid-connected people are paying. because there has to be some equity in the system. But this is still on being worked out, but we will do it, whatever is needed to be done. On energy efficiency, like power plants, then normally you talk of power plants as combined cycle power plants, which the efficiency would be 60% or so. Now we are trying to look at innovative way of increasing energy efficiency even further. Like if there is a power plant which is 40% efficiency, Professor Saifur Rahman is there. I hope I'm not getting myself wrong. Now, out of the exhaust heat, we can generate some electricity. And then after that exhaust heat is still high temperature, we take it to boiler. After that boiler use, the temperature comes down, we'll take it to chiller. And here comes the advantage of Bangladesh being small. Like we are just about to execute this plan near Dhaka, where there is a industrial complex being built next to the power plant. So we can take the heat without much loss, maybe a kilometer of pipeline, and the heat will be available free. Otherwise, we would have needed gas or electricity to make the heat. So there are this will make energy efficiency up to 80%. So we have to be creative. Otherwise, we cannot afford to be extravagant, or you cannot afford to not to look at bottom lines, because we are still a country struggling to improve our life. So energy efficiency, energy conservation, energy responsibility, these are very important. I mean, we have used a term called energy responsibility. That means even if you have enough money to buy electricity, buy power, don't use it. Use only the amount of power you need. And our Prime Minister, whenever she addresses a public meeting, asks everybody that turn off your switch when you leave your room. Don't have your fan going, even if you can afford. It's not a question of affordability. No. The market economy stops at affordability. You can afford, and the price of supply and demand will equate, and you are all set. No. We say, no, this Mother Earth cannot afford to provide for the services that your money can buy. No. Then you are going to, the whole world would become off balance. We all have to share our ambitions, which are consistent with the capacity of Mother Earth. So we are emphasizing energy efficiency also, energy conservation, energy responsibility. On the other side, domestic, use of primary energy. So we are emphasizing LPG as a source in rural areas and small towns. It's still expensive, but we have to find some ways of lowering the price. India used to pay a very heavy subsidy on domestic LPG, in the domestic LPG market. So we can't afford that, but we are trying. If you can import bulk LPG, then the cost can come down to by about 20 to 30%. So if anyone can go ahead and do a bulk import of LPG, the challenge comes, the draft of our ports. Chittagong port, main port, is still not a deep sea port. We are setting up one, as I said, in southern Bangladesh with the Japanese assistance at Matabari, but that's going to take another 3-4 years. The work is going on. Another port is being set up in a place called Paira. But, there would be ways of the other places where, large LPG ship can come, and if the bottling can be done, then it will be cheaper than, having LPG being brought in smaller ships. By the way, the other day I came here to attend a conference on ethanol. And it was a good meeting because we are not quite aware. Although I'm surprised, the law had some point mentioned there. But we had been going, and our octane level in gasoline is not what we say. It's much lower than that. So if you add ethanol, your octane level goes up, prices can be lower. it functions better. So I think we'll be importing some methanol. So he has a good business for US, the farmers and all. And it's going to grow also in the future. We are doing some regional connectivity. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina took the initiative of, first bold initiative, to get Bangladesh and India connected. We are already importing 1,500 megawatt of electricity from eastern, on our western side, and another about 200 megawatt from our eastern side. But and we are also trying to cooperate with Nepal and Bhutan to provide hydropower. Then we can balance our system because hydropower, we have a lot of control on hydropower. So Nepal and Bhutan would need a lot more power in winter, and we would be having surplus power in winter. So that's how we can exchange power. These are being discussed, and also like the other day we allowed a small project, LPG project in Bangladesh, which will be shipped to India. Now, otherwise India would have to come 1,500 miles through the north of Bangladesh to reach this area, because the British left a chicken neck. They needed to leave some apple of discord. Otherwise, so you have to go through that. But we provided access to our port, and it was a short, couple of hours journey, and there it was. So we would like we shared our bandwidth of our system with Tripura. So it's a coordination, cooperation between countries which can help achieve energy and other resources, more efficient use of them. India is planning to develop some hydropower on the eastern side, and we are talking of accessing some power and then letting them take the rest of it to West Bengal and other places. Mind you, these are easier said because there are a lot of political obstacles that had to be overcome. Two big neighbor and a small neighbor, they don't go on well, like US and Canada, So, the small neighbor will always have, and it seeps into the system. And there are people who would like to exploit that sentiment. But Prime Minister Hasina she's bold, She can take measures which others will falter. And so we have gone ahead with it, and we are now reaping benefit of that. Do I have anything more to say? Let me stop now.
Well, thank you for that incredibly comprehensive discussion about Bangladesh's energy system. There's one question, one topic that you didn't address that I'll ask before we open it up to everybody else. I'm sure there's others, but on my list of questions on nuclear power. So what is the status of the nuclear plant? And maybe you could talk about how nuclear will change the energy system. But also, I know one of the concerns that a lot of folks have here in Washington is the increasing Russian use of nuclear power relationships for geopolitical purposes. So perhaps you could also discuss the relationship with Russia.
Sorry, I missed out, but the nuclear power part is now handled, as of now, by Science and Technology Ministry. We will come into direct operation when the power plants are built. But nevertheless, we had this, back in 1960s, an area was earmarked for nuclear power plant during Pakistan times. But then they shifted the project to Karachi, and the land remained with a epitaph that there used to be a power plant, nuclear power plant there. But we wanted to, it was part of our aspiration, as I say, to join the technology club. So we started a discussion with IEA, and Russia came forward to provide finance for it. The critical part for a country like Bangladesh to choose a nuclear power plant is determined by who can come over with finance. So Russia came over with finance, and we had very detailed negotiation. Our scientists were trying to identify the type of reactor, where they're being used, what will be the security system there. We have sent about 1,500 engineers and technicians to Russia for doing studies on nuclear power, from PhD down to ordinary technicians. They would start coming back. So, and as you said, maybe before we came in, we have to be slightly going slow, because nuclear, we are having, let's say 2,000 megawatt first. So 2,000 megawatt nuclear power would need at least 20,000 megawatt system, always, at least. Because otherwise, the system balance would not be there. So we don't mind it's coming maybe 2024. By that time, our system will grow. And we are happy having this project. I would like to know that I have heard about modular nuclear reactor being developed here. I had some discussion with Professor Rahman that I was told Bill Gates has invested on modular reactor. So modular reactor, then other technologies that are coming into the hydrogen fuel and other things that are coming. We would be interested in knowing those. We have set up in our ministry Energy and Power Research Council. So we would like to cooperate in Energy and Power Research Council to at least be involved in the frontier technologies. We went to Professor Rahman's place in Virginia Tech, and he has a lab there for a miniature smart city lab. So we have taken that to Bangladesh. And the BMOS lab, you have gone and seen that possibly. So it's operating now, and we try to scale it up as a precursor of smart city. So yes, we are hoping that the area is not seismic area, The northern Bangladesh bordering Nepal has some tectonic movement, but not this area. So we are hoping that the risk could be very little, and there will be all kinds of safety measures, and the project is going smoothly now.
Thank you. Okay, let's turn it over to everybody here for questions. Remember to use your microphone so that people watching online can hear your question. Who wants to go first? Or did he answer every single question that you might have? We've got one right here.
I'd like to add a few things to what Dr. Chowdhury has just said. I'm by training a power engineer. Grew up in Bangladesh, went to school in Bangladesh, then living in this country for now 45 years. But I work in power industry. If you look at Bangladesh 20, 25 years ago, the government sector just began to take off. Severe power shortage, power not reliable, then it stopped the industrialists to go ahead and do it. So the very, very self-confident people, entrepreneurial, they made it happen. How? Backup generation. The diesel engine, this and that worked fine, which is going on well. Bangladesh is the second biggest exporter of garment in the world. Now the question is competitiveness. You can go up to some level with bootstrap. Then you got to formalize the situation. This is where we are right now, begin to formalize. That means we have to have power that's reliable, so people come in from other countries to invest in Bangladesh in the garment sector. They should not think, is the power reliable in Bangladesh? That question should not be brought up. So for that issue, from my viewpoint as a power engineer, I'd like to see the power sector being more robust, resilient, and not dependent on weather conditions. They get a storm comes in, a line is dropped, and the garment factory loses power. So for the country to be going to the next level from 20 gigawatt to 40 gigawatt, you need power that is reliable, so that power is not being handled by the garment sector using backup generation. So that's the challenge, and we'll be happy to help and give ideas. And the second thing is he mentioned energy efficiency. Go to Bangladesh now, garment factories, lot of lights, and they're very inefficient because that's what they had 10 years ago. You got LED lights now, lighting control, so that needs investment. I do what, like you mentioned, smart city, smart building at Virginia Tech in Arlington. So we have done work where I can reduce the power used by 75% by going to LED lights and controlling them. So opportunities that he mentioned, BMOS, that's a DOE project I did 2 years ago. This building energy management open source software. There's a BMOS lab in Dhaka University now. So things are happening. So I'm hoping people here who work in this industry, have money to invest, that look at the opportunities in Bangladesh. People are there, qualified guys. Bangladesh has about 30 schools giving degrees in engineering, 30 schools, producing 6,000 engineers a year. It's a lot of local talent, but that has to be harnessed by people with ideas and money. I'll stop here for now.
Thank you. I didn't, touch on this subject. Unlike a system engineer like him, he would like to see things very nicely done. We are trying to do it in a very shortcut way. Let me say how. We know that investors would ask for quality power, uninterrupted quality power. So we are developing special economic zones, about 100 of them, and 10 or 12 of them would come into operation shortly. So we first focus that we must provide them uninterrupted quality power. So we'll try to take them from maybe 30 kV line directly to the system, so that they don't go to the distribution system. The other is, what about the existing cluster of industries? Garment is not the only industry we're going to have. We'll soon have automobile industry, chip making industry, other industries. As you said, there's no dearth of talents there. And the other solution that we are working on, around the cluster of industries, we have sat down with the entrepreneurs and industrialists, how we can have maybe a subset, work out a ring or something to make sure that they get robust quality electricity till we have improved the whole system. So we'd like to go in this two-stage, but he has put his finger on the right challenges. And also, you did possibly would like to mention that as the challenges come, we need to be able to use our off-peak power. Bangladesh has, by summertime irrigation, it goes up to, let's say, X. And then winter time, it is not even half. So the capacity would be idle. So we are looking for storage, any innovation in storage, which will help us. I just saw the Nobel laureate in chemistry. He got on storage, battery storage. So we'd like to see what is there, or pump and storage. Or we would like to see trying to retrofit or have the electric trains running instead of diesel fires. Professor Rahman is helping us to getting in touch with Chinese labs who are doing this. And we are also trying to set up high-speed electric charging station. So you might say, why do you need charging station? Well, we have, I don't think even US has as many electric vehicles as we have. We have 1 million of electric vehicles, mind you, and they're all high occupancy electric vehicles. These are tri-wheelers which are run on batteries. And there, Bangladesh being a small country, it is helpful. He goes around maybe 5 kilometers in small roads, carries people, carries goods, carries people to hospitals, schools. So these are battery-run tri-wheelers. So we are trying to shift them to charge their tri-wheeler during the daytime, off-peak time. So these are few things, and I'm sure the scientists will be able to suggest how the off-peak means, excess surplus electricity during time of the day or season of the year, which should be used. Sorry.
You mentioned that when you're thinking of growing from 20 to 40, that you really need to be thinking of more robust, more resilient power. One of the risks that we haven't talked about are geopolitical risks, particularly given that you're importing most of your fuel. Do you see any geopolitical risks that are particularly salient for Bangladesh?
I can take an academic shot at it. the LNG, for example, we're importing from Middle East. Now, if we can diversify our sources, there are sources in the eastern side, Australia, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia. I mean, they are sometimes short, sometimes then maybe Russia on this side. So if we all keep importing from, or maybe US from the west coast side, if we have, then we'll be diversifying our energy supplies geographically also, which is very important. So that would be a short answer to it.
Thank you. Right there.
If I may, two quick questions. Can you share with us if you have a tariff or levelized cost of electricity for coal that you're building? That's one. The second one is a number of people are talking about a regional power market grid. This is to take advantage of big hydro resources in Nepal and Bhutan. Of course, everything has to go through India. So what is the position of your government in terms of the development of a regional power market? Thank you.
On the first, coal, as we move up the scale, the infrastructure that you are building, let's say, initially at Matarbadi, is for about 3,000 megawatt. So if we initially build, 1,000 megawatt, and if we fully cost them, then it will be very high. So once the whole infrastructure is built, it will be less than 10 cents, maybe 8 cents or so. And power market, when you have market-based power system, then you can start talking about power trading. We are doing a little bit of trading in that sense. We are buying some electricity from Indian market directly instead of going through public sector system. So taking advantage of the market in India that's being developed. With respect to our system to develop a market, I have two apprehensions. One is the merit of this system, because the finest example of a market-based power system was Enron, which went into very sophisticated derivatives and all. And the meltdown of market here didn't start with Lehman Brothers. It started with Enron. So if that is the ultimate mecca of this system, then we better be careful about it. Second, both Canada, Korea, Japan, they still have integrated system. Not much of market. So we have to decide, I think it's a choice that before us, and we are still debating on this subject. Mind you, Professor Saifur Rahman, you talked about energy LED light. There are some factories in Bangladesh who are designing it in such a way, then you don't need any light. And by the by, don't take any offense. You have put on the light and the sunlight is struck out from here. We can do a lot of energy efficiency if we just change our habits, We make it dark and then you put on the light. And Mother Nature's light is much preferable than, LED light, even if you say.
Thank you, Dr. Chowdhury, for your remarks today. It's very helpful. As I look at a lot of developing countries that have fast-growing demand, like Bangladesh, I worry about the distribution side. You talked about the generation side and all the efforts to mobilize resources, but the issue is that the distribution side, to meet that 8% growth in demand, needs huge investments. And so I wanted to ask, especially given the problems of providing affordable power to the population, would put some caps as to how much you can raise retail tariffs. But I wanted to ask about this aspect of how you see this potentially evolving in the future in terms of the institutional situation with regards to distribution and the reform of the market, the potential for potentially in wealthier, higher income cities to begin to privatize some of the distribution to help improve investment and generate more revenues for the government. Any any movement on that issue?
I think you raised a very important challenges before us. Both transmission and distribution network, they need to be upgraded to, as Professor Rahman said, to make a robust system. So we are investing, we have our power grid company, separate company, so that it's not tied up with that. We are investing in transmission network, but we are also looking if there are private investors who would like to join in investing in transmission. That would be welcome. We can discuss, certainly discuss. Distribution, we are not still thinking of hiving off to companies, but if there are challenges, if there are offers which says in certain ways, we are not a great, not a believer, not a disbeliever of market. We look for, things that work for us. So in distribution also, at some point in time, I think, we will have private sector. Not so much in distribution, but in terms of marketing power, so that even if we have the distribution lines, there will be agencies who will sell power, and that would offer competition. And even under the existing circumstances, consumer will get a choice as to which party to contract. So I think there are interesting areas to address. Sorry.
But are you generating enough revenues on the distribution side to meet the investment requirements of the distribution?
Our levelized average tariff is about 6 taka per kilowatt hour, and the cost is about 7.5 taka per kilowatt hour. Now, as we are phasing out the smaller rental power projects on fire based on furnace oil and diesel, the price will come down. So we should be able to have, and as the coal-fired power plants will come, they will be also, if it is 8 cents or so, then it will be close to our average tariff now. But we do offer, some concessional tariff to poorer people, which is called lifeline tariff, so that, they have access to power to minimum services. So, but as I said, for a growing economy, like a growing kid, you have to change trousers, shirts, and adjust to his needs. So it's a growing economy. So we'll have to adjust to its needs and not be, not have any fixed ideas of this has to be done and that cannot be done. You discover yourself, as you move along. As individuals discover their potential, so is also true of a nation. You discover your potential and you will find your way.
If coal is going to be about 8 cents, what is gas?
Now our domestic gas is not priced on the market based. Now people might say, now why aren't you pricing it, quote unquote, based on market? To be honest, we got it for free because our father of the nation bought these major assets, gas assets, for a peanut from the Shell company. And after having paid all these, about maybe $30 or $40 million, and the assets are worth, let's say, $5-6 billion. So it's for free that we got a gift. Now, who is the first? Who should be the first? Who should first benefit from such free gift of nature, let's say, or from the father of the nation? So we said, all right, let's have electricity and let's give it to our ordinary folks. Now that the essential demands have been met, now we'll start adjusting. And LNG would mean current price. At current price, the levelized tariff would be about 10 cents. So we will be adjusting. Instead of adjusting in one go, what we have been doing to slowly adjust, so that the companies do not run into cash flow problems, and they get used to a higher energy price, and also try to economize on using resources, look for energy efficiency. A lot of garment industries now, if you go, the state of the art manufacturing unit. They are using the captive power, that they're using the waste heat for boilers and then chillers, and that state of the art, manufacturing unit now. You wouldn't believe if you go and take a look at some of the garment factories. And other industries, Mind you, we would not like to remain stuck in garment. We want to diversify. So others, why not look at Bangladesh as a regional hub and have an automobile industry or, parts of that automobile industry. We can serve northeastern states of India, Myanmar, maybe part of China. So it can be used as a hub. We are getting connected by railway, by road, by India, Myanmar, China. We're getting connected by roads. So we see with the 100 special economic zone that we have offered, we see these zones to be able to cater to bigger markets. And India has taken 2 zones, Japanese have taken, Chinese have taken, you have not. So I wish, United States, there are a lot of people here, takes a bold step to say, all right, here is a zone we take for our, although, you are all free market operator, so you'd say, why should I do something, for industries? But don't be so fanatic about, things, If something works out, look at it that way.
Since we're talking about levelized tariff, what about solar?
As I said, solar, the tariff is much higher.
Much higher.
But we are trying to work a system so that it's being calculated now. We'll take it in the pool. And so we price it in such a way that the one who is using the solar will pay the same price. Or in other words, the excess cost will be shared by all of us rather than the customer only.
And that's rooftop, that's small scale solar?
Well, any solar we'd
Any
like
solar,
to price.
yeah, okay.
Now something interesting we're having now called net metering. You set up some on your rooftop solar, and the meter is tied. It goes both ways. So if you're using your solar power, then you don't have to pay for that much of electricity. And if you're not using any land, then solar is competitive, even lower than grid price at peak hours or during daytime. So industries are coming forward to do that. We're also looking to so rooftop solar is on a net metering basis is a big prospect for us. Then we are trying to see whether we can have floating solar projects. Also, if you can use solar, we are now using experimentally for irrigation. Now, these are expensive propositions, but we hope that technology will improve. So if we have our fingers on, then, as the prices will go down, as storage system will become more affordable, we can switch. But as you said, we can't have at this stage many large solar farms because, they will fluctuate the supply and the grid will not be stable. Am I right, Professor? Is the one I can.
We don't have land. We don't have that much land. Land issue, unlike Middle East.
Right.
You mentioned something about digital Bangladesh. I was wondering how you see digital technologies playing out in the power sector in terms of metering and all of that.
Good point. Problem with the digital technology, if you pick something 5 years down the road, it becomes obsolete. Now, you can't stop saying that I can't do it because something will get obsolete. So there has been a tug of war. At one point, we wanted to have whole system, digital smart system, to start with. Now then people said, no, you can't have it, So I was a promoter of digital smart system to start with. But I lost out to others who said, no, it's not. So now we are started using smart meters. And we are also trying to see how we can migrate to, more efficient, smart system. That would help us to allocate not only to ensure energy efficient use, but to keep our peak load lower. Because we can say that, don't use this much of power, we can't just afford to do that. So there would be so many choices. But you are right. Otherwise, in smaller ways, billing and all, they are being done, complaint and all, payment, because there is a finance company, digital finance company called Bikash, the largest one. And there are others also. So people can pay bills staying at home. You get your report back. Villagers can pay their bills in what we call digital center in villages, so they don't have to go. And you can fill out forms, anything you want, essential things, sitting in a village digital center. We are experimenting in so many other ways. There is a program called Ghore Boshe Borolo, be rich sitting home. So this is what we have.
Can we get that program here?
Yes, yes. What has been done, village women have been trained, let's say they have done 10 years of schooling. They have been trained in smaller, IT jobs. Now, Dhaka is one of the largest freelance centers in the world. About 6,000 to 7,000 freelancers are there. So they sometimes give out these jobs to these village girls. And I know when, surprisingly, they're so quick in adapting, and when they found out maybe the bandwidth is not good enough, they'll go to another place and deliver their job. And some of them earn, let's say, $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month. So this is how it's a ghore, you sit home and be rich, And it's we are happy to say that it's like sowing a field, If you sow a field, you will start seeing the field grow up. We are seeing that actually, that in so many areas, the spin-off benefits, but it has also its own, risk. You all say Facebook has become more of a liability than an asset. Recently, they had a fake news and started off almost a riot in one place. It's time that we all take a look at it. The benefit, to me, the harms outweigh the benefit at this stage. Keeping up with friends and all that, selling few products, they do. But, it is exposing countries to huge risk. And, you all must put our head together. It's a demon that's coming up. And they would, very soon, these Facebooks or, for example, the tech industries with artificial intelligence and all will take control of our life. So there is nothing to be excited about this future. I'm more concerned about it, I tell you.
Dr. Chowdhury, thanks so much for your comments. I'm Chris Smith from Cheniere. We got an opportunity to meet back when you were here in July. So very wide-ranging comments from you today. You talked about nuclear, you talked about LNG and LPG and exploration. You talked about efficiency and storage and solar. So a lot of really exciting opportunities and a lot of key decisions for the government to make that have to be made by regulators, have to be made by decision makers, officials. So how do you think about kind of prioritizing in that environment and kind of moving the ball forward when you have so many chess pieces on the board? Like how does the government think about prioritizing in a plan?
That's a tough question, One of my jobs, actually involves in prioritizing and which one to take on first. But I think, we will move, we have our goals fixed, let's say. We must have this much of generation, power generation, and it must be quality, uninterrupted, it must reach the country. So, as I said, let's say in transmission network, instead of trying to build the whole network, we try to address in pockets. In terms of LNG supply, as I said, once we have started, we would like to diversify our sources. So next time, we are having some spot market procurement of the LNG. And I hope there has been shortlisting of companies. So we'll try to see how much we can benefit from spot market. As I said, life is a parallel processing. You start doing multiple, processor, and hoping that they would not go haywire.
That's a pretty good answer.
Thank you so much. It's been really fascinating and very comprehensive. At the beginning, you said that money follows the good ideas, and that's absolutely true. Looking at your investment needs going forward, when you are doubling or tripling the generation again, and transmission, distribution, gas, transmission system, ports, and all that, how do you see, and the government has its own resources, which has been, for example, used for REB's investments to really drive that agenda, that priority. And us development partners will be there, and there will be government-to-government relationships, but the investment needs are huge. How do you see the role of, where do you see the financing sources in addition to the ones that you have been able to use to date? Commercial financing, for example, do you think the state-owned enterprises could start accessing some commercial finance from the local markets, bond issuance, other instruments such as that, and the private sector?
Good point. We have already, we are just about to issue about $100 million local bonds by a power company to test the market. Large part of it has been subscribed already. So this is for local market bonds. We are working on $1 billion bond of in dollar, and few banks are working with us. It will be bond of PDB, our Power Development Board entity, which will be backed by some guarantee from government. So maybe we hope to have that bond issued in a year's time, the PDB bond. Yes, we have to, time has a value. Now, if I am to get at, let's say, 1% or 0% interest rate from an entity, which is going to take 5 years to decide, and that's not our pickup. I'd rather pay 5% now and go ahead than to wait for 5 years. I'm talking about multinational organizations. They take a lot of time to decide, and I don't blame them. So our goal would be, if we have very urgent projects, then we'll go for commercial financing. I wish US had looked at its Export-Import Bank to finance projects. I had myself mentioned it maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. I think in 2010, I still remember President Obama had gone to Europe to attend a OECD or OECD conference, and he said we'll put in $30 billion of Exim Bank loan, which will help countries and also, jumpstart our economy. But it didn't happen, and I found out that something in the law which restricted Exim Bank. You just said Exim Bank, and someone said, yeah, Tom said. So Exim Bank credit and other credits, would help us to move fast, We are a sprinter, and we all want only sprinter with us, nobody else,
That's fantastic. Bob.
I may ask another question. Bangladesh is still at the early stages of urbanization. And sort of with your background looking at all these years, how do you see this process and what it means for your economy and energy system in the future? I mean, we've talked about energy efficiency on all the buildings and how to improve that, and the integration with the grid, and in the context of digital economy and AI and energy management systems is going to be very important around the world. But it also issues the question, is there an urban policy that is important in the future in terms of ensuring efficient and environmentally sound cities? How does that relate to your microgrid and efforts to develop, in a sense, in the rural areas where, still 70% of the people live maybe. Productive enterprises so that you can, to some extent, stem that urbanization pressure that your major cities are getting.
Interesting thing, Bangladesh is one big city actually. Because I said, 1,000 persons per square kilometer. Or what they call, I think, penurbanization, you have string of township. So that's what it is now. But as you said, we need to have how we will be in the future. I sometimes keep saying that we are an experiment in future. Because if the world goes under, 1/3 of the world goes underwater, possibly rest of the world would learn what Bangladesh did. Because we're already more compact than 7 billion people in 1/3 of the world. So there are two things, very subtle things that are happening. One, if you improve communication and all, and if you decentralize services like hospitals, education, then there will be less people moving into big cities, let's say. But one idea that is being implemented now, that's called, the Prime Minister has given its name, Amar Gram Amar Shohor, my village, my town. The idea is to provide all essential services to a village and try to organize their life settlement also in a more efficient way, if we may call it. So, but it has to grow naturally. We are not thinking of imposing. So if we can provide, let me put it, small communities with health services, with access to electricity, access to internet, access to education, shopping facilities, then they can access town if they want to go big cities. It's not even an hour's drive from there. Then we can have small villagers living in harmony and together, contributing productively to the growth of the economy. It's a big challenge, more of a dream than, but it's being worked out. We have done some sketches of how the Amar Gram would look like. In far south in Paira, where we were resettling people, those are affected by power plant. We did a small settlement, roughly in this line. Nice, tidy houses, small, a tank in the center, a mosque, a shopping place, then some technical education center, a small township, you will call it township, settlement of, let's say, few hundred families. But these are resettlement people. But existing people, how much they would like to move around. People get used to a kind of life, even when the villages are closed, but you still try to live by yourself. So these will undergo transformation, I'm sure. The anthropologists and all would know better than I do. But it's a big challenge, as you said, because we have to make sure that we make best use of our land without, concentrating in areas, if I may say, paraphrase your statement.
Could you just comment a little bit more on electric vehicles? It seems to have been a success story. Is there any factors that you could highlight? The launching of this, I think you said there's 1 million vehicles. There was the financing there. Was the different parts there? Sort of what led to that launch, that successful launch? Thank you.
Thank you. This is an example of private initiative, finding its own niche. We came to discover when it was already in place, let me be very honest. People started, one has to go and find out who started where. But it was the initiative of local people. In fact, the law was against them because they didn't have any engine. So the Motor Vehicle Act could not cover them. And there are a lot of people saying, oh, these guys are, risky. They come on the highway, take them off, they're taking a lot of electricity. Even there are places where police went in to stop them. But then gradually people realized that, they're doing very essential service. So it is all domestically designed. with battery. Some even put a little solar panel on the roof to get some extra, and the wheels are, when people started saying that they are not very scientifically designed. So I asked universities, that will give you money, go and design scientifically, but don't stop something which is going, something which is functioning. It's better said, to complain. And they have been, my common sense says that if they stay in the village roads or, semi-urban roads, there will not be major accidents because they are slow-moving vehicle. Even if they, go on the side, you maybe may break a bone, nothing will happen serious. So they do not provide any, and these people are providing excellent service to the rural areas. Only thing they should not be allowed to come on the highways. But then, the risk to them and to others would be. So we are trying to, standardization is a risk also. The moment you start standardizing, you start having rules, then someone will go and this may become an instrument of, tyranny rather than help. Rules are not always very desirable. So I have been staying away from imposing rules. Let it grow, if they can provide service, if people don't complain, and if you can provide power, he's a good customer. They consume over 500 megawatt of power each day. How much, sorry? 500 megawatt. So it's a large chunk of power they consume. But they can be made more efficient, the design can be more efficient, charging could be faster. So if there are any companies which would like to set up fast charging station, they are welcome to come and talk to us.
So one final question, we're almost out of time. You started touching on this earlier, but Bangladesh is ranked 6th on the Global Climate Risk Index for countries vulnerable to climate change. Now, you talked about how Bangladesh really has incredibly low per capita carbon footprint, so the additional coal plants won't do much. But this is a global problem that's going to impact Bangladesh very, very locally, very, very quickly. How do you think the rest of the world needs to be responding and thinking about climate change, given the set of issues you have to deal with in making sure Bangladesh has enough power?
Thank you very much. Let me say that although we're setting up coal-fired power plants, Bangladesh is the only country which set up its own climate fund for our own resources. First, we didn't wait for others because it's our problem first. We started doing some research in rice which can grow in brackish water, and it has been done already. Rice which can, so there is one we have to find our own ways of solving problems while we, draw the attention of the world. I don't know why, but God has been kind, Bangladesh was always recognized with cyclone, flood, tidal bore, typhoon. For the last 20 years, we are not having any of those things. He now moved to North America. Maybe Mother Nature is taking some revenge on Europe and America for having screwed it up, But we are lucky. But that does not take away the risk that is involved. So I think, there's so much easy jobs that can be done to reduce the carbon footprint. Don't think of me as a kind of preacher. If we start driving less, if we take off our curtains when there's sunshine out there, if we start saving, you are rich, you can afford. But don't, effort is not, consumption is not a hallmark of civilization, no. So if all of us start doing our life a little differently, we can solve this problem. It's not but we have to have that both at individual level, at community level, at level of government, a sincere dedication to solving this problem. Then, humanity has never failed to solve its problem. But if we don't have our wills together, if we look at our own self-interest of this industry, that industry, and get, involved, then it will not solve. It will not. Then you see, we have learned how to live on water, There is a group called Bede, Bangladesh, the snake charmer. They live on boats, For centuries they've lived on boats. And they go out, sell some trinkets, and then go back in the snake charmer, go back and live in the boats. So at least we have learned how to deal with cyclone, flood. It's tough on us. The risk is high on us. If there is a water level rises, we will be the first country to be inundated with few others together. So I think it is a moral challenge before all nations. It's not economic, it's a moral lesson. Are we going to leave a world behind which our children, grandchildren would curse us for being so selfish? Or shall we leave something behind? They will look at us and say, we had real good parents and grandparents who looked at our interest and, try to cut their short course, according to the needs of the future generation. I hope, who could be a better voice than that young girl from, what is her name? From Sweden.
Greta.
Greta. She's us, She's our voice.
On that note, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for giving the opportunity.